Hello everyone. Good evening, Sagar this side. So how is Diwali celebration is your side? I see less crowd today.
Hi Sagar, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Danish. I think people are all out for vacation due to the long weekend and the long vacation that they have on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So don't you guys have holiday on Monday till Wednesday? Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay. So don't you guys have holiday in your work?
No,
No. Okay.
in my organization, I have to work 24/7, and every month a week off get changes.
Okay.
So this month, my week off is Friday and Saturday.
Okay. So are you from in India, Bangalore only, or outside?
No, I'm basically from Jharkhand, but currently working in Mumbai.
Okay. All right. Actually, I'm also waiting for the FI license key, which I had applied, but I've not received it. Okay. Let me wait. Might be I'll give you the instructions what you need to do. So let's talk about the license part today. Let's talk about the license part. What do you need, or how the license part is activated. Have you guys ever done any license part or activation of F5? I'm talking about the day zero setup.
Not me, never.
Okay. So guys, as I told you last class, F5 module do not come with any license initially, but yes, we can apply for a 30 days of evaluation license. So this license you have to visit on the F5 website, like I was showing you some time back. This website, okay, which is called as download.f5.com trial. Download f5.com trial. You can register with any of your email ID, personal, or if you want
You're
corporate.
sharing your screen, Sagar?
You're not able to see.
No, we just see the, the, what do you call, like, this
Now.
whiteboard. Yeah. Now, yeah.
Okay. So step number 2 is you go and register on this website download.f5.com trial. So it's gonna ask you some very basic question like number of license you need. Maximum they give 3, minimum they give 1. Then they'll ask you which module of big IP that you want to take it. So you can say that you're looking for big IP virtual edition. Then they're gonna ask what is your role? Are you a software developer? Are you a network engineer? So that's a optional question. And when you click enter here, you need to wait for at least 30 minutes to receive an auto-generated email, and that is what I'm doing right now. So I applied few minutes back, like 15 minutes back, and I'm still waiting. It says that your trial registration and activation key will be emailed in the next 30 minutes on so and so email ID. Okay, email ID is good, fine. So this is what is the initial setup. You need to wait. There is no shortcut now. Minimum 15 to 30, sometimes 35, 40 minutes it takes, but it definitely comes. Okay. A very, very rare scenario if your region or country is not supported, might be they might send you after 24 hours, but usually it is all within 30 minutes. Okay. So in some time I should receive it. By then we can just simply check what we will do once we get the activation code or the license key. So once I get the license key, which is consisting of, let's say, 12 digit. Now what I do is I need to download the OVA file of a F5 big IP module. Now where do I get it? I can get it on the official website of theirs, and it's available for free. You don't have to look for torrent or the corrupt files. You can get officially downloaded. But this software, once you load on the VM, that is what you need the license key to activate. Okay. So now let's see how the OVA file could be downloaded. So if you go back, there should be, let's say, F5 big IP OVA file download. See, virtual editions. I think they might have been running now 15. 15 was 3 to 4 months back, but I think now they have 16 as well. See, login to register. Let's log in. You have reached. Okay, no issues. We don't need license as of now because I've already applied for license from another account, but I need the virtual edition softwares, right? So I'll go to the download button and over here find a download. Yeah, see now 17 has come. So as I told you, you don't need to find any torrent website or any corrupt files and get a backdoor or vulnerability issues. The softwares are available. The ISO or the OVA files, virtual files, are already given by F5. They also give you 30 days of license. What else you need to practice? So in the lab, I think I remember it was 15 dot something. You guys can download anything of your choice. There is no much difference. But yes, the more latest file you download might be the more complex it or the more complexity it creates while you load it on the virtual edition. Okay, that is very usual thing. When you have a new thing, they will introduce lot of checks. If you have one or you have -1 -2 steps, the complexity would be less. So you can try with 17. If it don't create any problem, then it's fine. Otherwise 15 is stable version. So let's say if I go under 15 and let me also keep 17. So here you have to find the appropriate version. Okay. So under 17 train, there are different add-ons or different version that they have. So this is the latest 1.7. So you have to find the version that will help you. So for me, out of this is the one that I need to be taking care of, virtual edition. The rest are cloud and for other purposes. So let me click on virtual edition. So when I click on virtual edition, we are sorry, we are unable to download. Okay, let me check one more time. Let me check on the 17. Might be they would have disabled 15 now. Okay, might be this is some temporary issues. Let's see. Okay, there is one more virtual edition that I can see. Let me check that. Okay, looks like this is a temporary issue as of now. Otherwise, the moment you click it, you get the options to download it. Okay, let me look for might be 16 version. 16 and we have virtual edition here. No, there is some issue as of now, okay, on their website. Otherwise, you get a simple option of downloading. It will ask you which server you want. There would be 3 different servers like Australia, Singapore, India. You can just download from whichever link you want. And it's usually 2 to 4 GB of a file, OVA file. And that file you need to import it on your virtualization environment. So we have imported on our EXI. If you need a home lab, definitely we will give you the ready-made file. But if you are creating it on yourself, then you can load it on direct EVNG. Or if you have VMware, you can also install it on the VMware itself. Okay, and then you spin this, you get a IP assigned. By default, F5 will have a static IP, which is in this range 192.168.1.245. Now, static IP is good to do your basic requirement, but in the lab, we better go with the DHCP IP. The benefit of DHCP IP is I don't have to open the management dashboard within the lab or virtualization, which can sometimes be slower. I can open it even from the base machine, from outside of VM. So with using DHCP command, I can enable under the DM message, I can enable DHCP on the global settings. And I just need to reboot my F5 machine, which will give me the DHCP IP from my adapter or something, okay? Something in this range. So this is now my management IP. And on this management dashboard, which is not licensed at the first boot up, you need to bring up this step and license this part. Okay, so that is the correlation. 2 steps we take it here. One is you register pre-handed for the license, which takes 30 minutes to arrive. And meanwhile, you need to download the OVA file, upload it on your virtualized environment, bring up the dashboard and wait. Okay, that's how it goes. So I'm still waiting. I have not received the license, but let's say I completed my second step and the dashboards are ready. Let's see if, let me log into the dashboard. So when you have it loaded on the EVNG, you should have an option to deploy. So how many of you have used EVNG or PNet or GNS? Anyone who have never heard about it?
I heard only GNS. Haven't heard UNG.
Okay, but you might have uploaded images on the back end of GNS, right?
I mean, not explored it much, I've just used it once.
Okay. So when you upload an image on the back end, this is how it starts reflecting. So we have uploaded the F5 image, okay, 16 series. So that is why it will give us this option. You don't have to do anything. When you click on save, see, this is how the node get deployed. So I have already started up one of them. So let me see what IP it has received. See, initially,
what is this tool?
This is PNet Labs, which is a emulator.
Okay.
Okay, so you mean GNS also support F5 image?
Yes, GNS also works.
Okay.
Okay, GNS, EVNG, and PNet Labs. These are the three very popular emulators for network engineers these days.
Yeah, I have used GNS for routing and switching, but not for F5 and another
Okay.
vendor.
Initially, I used GNS for all these labs, but when I started exploring, I felt the PNet is much more easier to configure and much more stable than GNS and EVNG. So this is the reason why I personally use this emulators. Okay, but I don't say that GNS is not capable. I have done previously in the GNS itself. It works good. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, so let's say this is my device. So when I'm over here on the initial prompt of the CLI, you see I get to see some sort of command line. Okay, so it says that it's a root privilege. The host name I selected is this. The configuration syncs have not happened. It's a standalone box as of now. That means I have not done any sort of HA pairing as of now. Okay, how do this box come to know whether I've done or not done? Because if there was a HA pairing between two load balancer, then definitely there would have been keep alive between them, heartbeats. So one would have elected as a primary and the second one would have been elected as secondary. But it says clearly that they are not in a sync as of now. They are standalone. They are acting as a standalone box, not in a HA pair. And then it says license expired. Because we have not updated any license as of now. And this is, as usual, most of the next gen firewall has a concept of context, right? So this is also very similar thing, context. So if you want, you can create multi-context. Each context you can dedicate to the customers. Let's say you create a logical context for customer A. So you will create all his respective config in that logical context. If you have one more logical context for customer B, so you can create all his settings in that. What is common? Common is that without a context, if you don't have any context in your F5, a whole thing is being shared by multiple customers. Okay, but if you are having a F5 with multiple context, then to see the config, you have to get into that particular folder. Then only you will be visible or have the visibility to see the configuration. And then you have a TMOS version. Now this is the two types that F5 will have. The one is called as bash. Second one is called as TMSH. TMSH is nothing but traffic management shell, and bash is nothing but your the CLI options, a CLI or your control plane, I can say, which has nothing to do with configuration. TMSH is something where you have all your configs and data flow happening. All the configuration will be stored here. So right now you are in the TMOS field. If you want to get behind, once you want to get out of TMOS, so you can say quit. See, now this is a field where you're not in the TMOS. Instead, you are in the bash mode. Okay, it's a config mode. So what happens here? Now let me tell you, the F5 will have two hard disks. So let's say one of them is your config, where all your logs are stored, your SNMP logs, your mail logs, okay, your packet capture logs, all your utilization, and all the different types of because this is finally a type of Unix or Linux background. So you have to remember basic commands like cat, dir, ls. So you can explore the content of config. In the same way, when you get into the TMSH mode, you will get configuration that is related to network, like your routing configurations. You will see the configuration related to the local traffic management, like web, pool, nodes. Then you have visibilities on the tables like routing table, ARP table, okay, the different tables here. And you will have the visibility to the algorithms, profiles, lot of other things. So that is why these are two segregated. Initially, you will log in here. The moment you log in here, you will see yourself in the config, and then you get into the TMS mode by entering TMS as a command. So let me show you first what are the content here. So you do a ls first. See, these are the things that you will see related to the big IP. Let's say SNMP, SSH, SSL certificate, SNMP, AAA, the license part. So let's say if you do var, enter. Let's say change directory var opt, enter, ls. So right now it's empty, but here is where your packet captures will sit. So in future, when you take any sort of Wireshark PCAP capture, this is where you need to come and take out. So all your the local traffic logs, like if some node get down, a pool is getting down, everything will be stored here. So this is like your files that is generated and stored in the F5 side. Okay. But to configure something, this is not the right place. You need to get into TMSH. So type TMSH. Now you are in the TMSH mode or TMOS mode. So here the command starts with list or show. So you do a list first and do a question mark. So when you do a question mark, these are the different aspects that the big IP F5 module support. This is all related to authentication configurations. This is your CLI configuration mode. This is your centralized management, local traffic management. This is related to your management configuration. This is network configuration, all the policies. This is system related, and this is WAN optimization. So if you try to get into each one of them, let's say list, sys, question mark, there would be other tabs that's available on the graphical dashboard, which you see it in the CLI format in this manner. Let's say you wanted to configure pool or node or something. So what would you do? List, LTM, question mark. You will see the important ones. You will see the node. If you want to see the virtual address, if you want to see the pool, so this is where you see it. Okay. So let me complete one complete command. Let's say list LTM node, enter. See, there are certain configuration that is present in this box already. So you see it, it's been configured already. Now this configuration might have done from the CLI or from the graphical interface. Graphical interface, as I told you, you need to follow certain 3 to 4 tabs, click here, click there, type the respective names, IP, and finally you configure it. But I remember this used to be very, this used to be very lengthier process. The graphical method is bit lengthier process. So what we used to do is, we used to prepare the CLI command. Okay, so let me tell you, to create a configuration via CLI is the most easiest part in F5 or Palo Alto if you're creating policies. The CLI method works the best when you're doing a configuration. But if you're monitoring, managing, troubleshooting, then the graphical is the simplest one. You don't need to remember multi commands now. So when we create something, it's very simple in such technology, because you just need to clone it. So let's say if I do a create LTM node, and if I define the name of it, like let's say it's a blue server, something like this. And then within the blue server, I say that it needs to have a address of 1.1.1, something like this. So once I have created one template, what if I have to do it for like 40 servers? The graphical method is definitely not the simplest option. So what option do we left with? We are left with CLI. So you can use any Excel sheet, you can do the data filtering, and then try to appropriately make use of the configurations line. Okay, so once you have this, then you just have to copy and paste it, and you have your configuration done. Okay, this used to be the method either via graphical or via the CLI method. But now you know that there is a automation. We can use Python or Ansible or APIs to get this job done. But this used to be not the scenario at least 3 to 4 years back, because I think in the last 3-4 years the automation I see everywhere. But 3 to 4 years back we used to do it in this way. Okay, now this kind of thing we used to do it to configure something. So let's say if I say create LTM node, it will ask me to enter the name. So let's say it's a black server or something, question mark. So now I will use another curly bracket. It will ask me to enter address. Let's say address is 9.9.9, and then close it. Okay, now let's see the output for that list command. So let's say list LTM node, enter. So do you see this black server which we just created some time back? So what was the command? Create LTM node. I said black server, and then I took this in the curly bracket. Okay, so once we have one template ready, we can clone it and we can change the IP using some Excel or something. But end of this class, end of this F5 session, once we are done, I'll also show you the automation process. I'll show you how do you do the same job via automation. Even though if you're not using this in your production, might be down the line you have to do the automation part. So the API is a easiest manner, but Ansible and Python is also the simplest way to create this stuff.
So what does this create node is doing? Is this connecting to the server?
Yes, this is creating to the server. So
okay, the 9.9.9 is a server IP, right?
Correct. So let's say this is my F5 box now, and there was one server with 9.9.9.9. So you just created the entry of 9.9.9 on the F5 box now. You just created the configuration of that, but then you should also do the respective port configuration here. Okay, then only the ping will be successful. So it's not like your simple router or switch. What happens in switch? If you connect a PC with some IP, Might be you do some VLAN configuration like 10 or you keep it 1 or something. Then apart from that, you don't have to make an entry separately for 1.1 because there is a MAC address table which originates itself. But in the F5, what happens is you need the entry because that entry will later on be used under the pool configuration, and that pool configuration will be under the VIP configuration. Okay, you have to do your all configuration from layer 2 point of view, plus you have to make an entry creation for that node. So that entry creation will not automatically come up in the F5. So that was the tedious job, as I was explaining you here. Sometimes what happens, the server teams provide us 40 to 50 nodes, say that they ask us to make the entry on the F5. So now we have to do it either in the graphical or CLI. Graphical method, you know that you have to press 4 to 5 different clicks to do type, etc., etc. But CLI is simplest method where you can just clone it and copy paste, and it's done. Okay. All right.
Sagar,
yeah,
Anil,
yeah,
one question.
Yeah.
One, I understand. I mean, we do have this recording engine now. We can always go back and then see what is happening. But is there a way, like, do you give some kind of notes?
Yeah, the notes are already in your web portal. When you get your access to the web portal,
Okay.
the class 0 has some materials, reading materials, lab workbook, and all the home lab files.
Okay.
So
Fine.
there you will get all the instructions and all these things, reading material.
Okay. No, because since you are actually explaining it and whether I have to make a notes of it. So, I was just trying, but
you don't have to make notes as of now. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, no issue. So see guys, this is how the mail is sent to me. It was sent few minutes back. So I asked for 3 license, so they gave me 3 virtual license. Okay. Now it's right time we can go ahead and activate the certificate on the box. Now, how do I come to know what is my management IP? Right. So there is no way I can see, right? I cannot get to know the IP over here. So there should be some sort of CLI command using which I can see what IP it has. So the command is list network list sys management IP. Enter. This is the management IP. I've done the DHCP configuration. So it's 28.142. 28.142, 172.16 HTTPS. Enter. And there we have. Okay. So the username is admin. Password, I have kept it as network journey. Enter. And there we go. We have a unlicensed product which says that I am ready to get this module activated the minute the license is onboarded. So let's go ahead, click on reactivate button. Now this is an old license which has expired after 30 days. I'll click on edit and take one of the license from the email which they sent me a few minutes back. Put it here. Now, not every data center where you deploy your F5 will be connected to the internet reachability. So sometimes you have to go with the manual activation method. If your F5 was connected to internet, then yes, this is the method, outbound connectivity. But since you are not connected to internet, then manual method is something which you need. Click on next. You get a dossier. It's an encrypted format of what your box is capable of. You will not able to see this, but what you receive later on in the next step, that you can decode it, the meaning of that. Okay. For now, I'll just copy this as it is, Control C. There is a link on the step number 2 to activate this. So I'll click that. It will resolve on this. You have to copy paste what you just had copied in the previous step. Click on next. It will ask you to accept the message. Next. And there we go. We have a working license now. Now this is the license which I copy completely, come back, put over here, click next. It will take some time to adopt that license and apply. It will also restart its service, not reboot. It doesn't need reboot now, but it needs reset or reboot of its services. So the service will get restarted. It will take certain 30-40 seconds, and then we should have an option to select the module that I need. It says, please.
So LTM and GTM needs a different license, or like in this license can do both?
No. One license you can activate one module. So when you deployed that 16 dot series or 17 dot series, at this step, it is gonna ask you which module you want to activate. You want GTM, LTM, ASM, AFM, what you want, you can activate it. This image, what I have right now, it is a it's a converted image of my previous LTM. That is why you will see some basic configuration from my previous would be visible, like blue, green, red. What I had done is previously, when I did a basic license on the day one, I bought up the device. There is one option here in the lab which says commit. So what happens in commit is, even if I wipe this, my configuration will still remain on the box. The license might go off. So as soon as I put the license, I can see the basic configuration which is available. Like might be there is some pool, there is some policy. So I had cloned it. That is why I didn't get that option to select whether it's a LTM, GTM or AFM. But for you guys, when you do the similar step, there would be one step now where you have to decide whether you want LTM to be activated or GTM or the other module. There would be some 6 to 9 different modules listed there. Okay.
Okay. So, but if I want to, now I understand you already said, on this, class, you're going to cover LTM. And, but, say if I want to, I don't have any experience, I'm just asking. So if I want to even try out with GTM, probably after this learning, right? So I'll have to get another demo license and then use it for GTM. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, you will do the same step, activate everything is similar. On the last step, you will select the GTM module to be activated.
Okay.
Okay.
I understand.
Yeah. Same goes with AFM or ASM. Someone who wants that, you have to repeat the same process. On the step, on the last step, you will select AFM or whatever module you want, and that module gets activated. So you see here right now it is LTM module activated, local traffic. Otherwise, on global traffic, you will see the global traffic that gets activated. All right. So now, see, I was talking about some entry making. So let's say if I would have to do the entry making for a black server, I have to click here. I have to type all the way, whatever is the thing. I have to add a minimum, at least the IP here. Even if you're not selecting the rest of thing, it's fine. But it already took me kind of 10 seconds to 20 seconds. And if you have like 40, 50 such nodes, the graphical is not the right way, is not the best way. Okay, so you cannot go and keep on adding this one after one. It's not gonna happen. So in that case, we used to go with the CLI cloning. So we create one CLI template, and that CLI template we use some Excel and all that stuffs to delimit, etc., and change the IP accordingly. Concatenate. There are a lot of formulas available in the Excel, and this used to be the very simplest option. Copy, go back to the CLI, and you have it visible. Okay. See, now if you see this, which was referring to license expired. Now, if I do a enter keyboard on my keyboard, you see the license says active because I've activated the license now. Now the data will process. Once after 30 days, if you had cloned it, if you had committed the node, all the config will remain, but the data processing will stop because the license would have expired. So once you activate it, all your configuration will be restored. So that is why I committed the node. I think you guys also have an option on your lab when you get the access. When you go and unlock it, there is a edit button. So if you select these two, these are the brand new devices where you have to select the module like LTM, GTM, AFM, etc. Whereas these two things are our committed nodes where it is already LTM deployed. Might be there could be some basic config, but you will not have an option of module to be selected. Okay, so this, you guys better start with this, and then once you're tired of doing all this thing every time, you can use the committed node, so that at least the basic configuration is not wiped in the next lab or something. Okay.
So how is the high availability license works, Sagar?
There is no special high availability license in the FI. This 30 days of evaluation itself will give you the privilege to create HA.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
so you'll create another copy, use the same license, and then I don't know, maybe you create it somehow.
Yeah, that is the right way. You need another license. That is why I requested 3 license, because the second license I need to activate secondary LB device, and then I have to build the HA pairing over here.
Oh, okay.
The license concept you see in the Palo Alto, for all features you need one license, then only that feature works. Here you have the evaluation license for 30 days, everything will work for 30 days, then it will stop for all the features.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so let's not get into deeper now. We will take the node and tool and the virtual in the next class. What you do is, the minute you get the lab access on Monday, try to activate for now. Okay, that is something what I want to do as of now. You activate this. The next class I will show you how do you onboard a server. Okay, the servers that FI can detect or recognize, because you should be able to ping all your backend servers. That is where you get to know whether servers are reachable or not. So this is one of my server, 0.8. I'll tell you what is that. 0.8 is my blue server. So first I made the entry, which you guys know. But as I told you, keeping entry is not gonna help. I have to create VLANs and a gateway on my LB, because my LB is acting as a gateway for these backend devices, right? So there are 2 steps involved. You go to network, go to VLANs, you define which VLAN you want for your backend server and which VLAN you need it for your outside facing. So let's say for servers, I will create one entry. I will map some, there is a concept of trunk and access. If you say untagged, that means you can expect any traffic on this line. Okay, this interface, you can keep it on an untagged basis. But if you would have gone with a tagged configuration, then you should bring up the concept of trunking here. I'll show you this in the next class. I'm just giving you an overview right now. So trunk and all this stuffs. Okay, so you need a VLAN configuration that you need to define on the port. You need to say this is a VLAN 100. I have done a untagged traffic, so I can keep it on a VLAN 1, the default VLAN. I can do it, and rest of them as well I can do on the default itself, because they are a untagged traffic as per my configuration. And after VLAN, I only need one more configuration to be done, that is called self IP. Self IP is nothing but like your gateway. Okay, so this guy, if this guy has to ping 8.8.8, he must know who is my gateway, then only it will send that 8.8 to that particular person, and that person will take the responsibility of sending the packets outside, right? So gateway is very must. If we don't have gateway, you ping any IP, it will just start dropping off. So gateway for this servers are LB as of now. but not in every enterprise scenario. Sometimes what we do is the servers are kept on a gateway behind a firewalls too. Okay, in that case you have to allow port and lot of mechanisms you see in that scenario. I'll just tell you the second scenario. For a unauthorized, to prevent unauthorized access. Otherwise, what happened? Anyone can just make the entry, and the servers can be communicated. So to have a two-way of authentication, let's say a firewall is kept. Now these servers having a gateway here. Now even if you make an entry, until you allow the port between this to this, the communication will not happen. Okay, that is done to avoid unauthorized access. But if let's say there is no firewall kept, now this is just VLAN and self IP. Self IP is nothing but a gateway. So you have said this is your gateway 0.1 for this VLAN 100. Okay, then once this configuration is done, you should be able to ping your backend servers. See, like this way. Okay, so this is how the onboarding is done. So once the servers are onboarded, we should be having a ping reachability. And once you have this, then you can do the configurations using the pool management and WIP management. Okay, that we will do it in the next class, because you have another class starting in the next few minutes. So I just don't want to drain you as of now. Okay. So any question before we wind up?
What happens if my F5 device went down due to any reason? Will the user able to access the server or not?
No, it will not work. That is why we need the HA pairing.
Okay.
See here in the syllabus, I'll show you that same scenario. If this is going down, so your traffic will stop, right? So we will bring the secondary in picture. Okay, so this should come up. All the web, etc. That will be a regular sync that happens. So the traffic will be taken via this device. So any further doubt, guys? All right. So if that's all for
and HA itself checking the other device is active or not, or does we have to keep tracking here?
Yeah, the same concept comes here. You need to configure keep alive, which will check the node is up or down, and depending upon the failover happens. Okay. Okay, so Azad, are you in the meeting?
Hey Sagar, yes.
Okay, so Azad, you can take over with your session. I'm done for the day. And guys, those who need to enroll or who have not enrolled, you already have our details. So just let me tell you, this is how the course been pipelined. We have 2 modules starting parallelly. Once this is done, then we go with ASA, checkpoint, and FortiGate. So this is 5 modules. And I had already shown you all the lab topology. This is for Palo. This would be for F5. And you have ASA, FTD, FortiGate, checkpoint, and finally the massive lab topology. Okay. And this is the contact details. You can just reach out, and our backend will help for that.
So after enrollment, the class will be for 1 hour, right?
1 + 1 hour, yes.
Yeah, for each of the topics.
Yes. Okay. Okay, guys, thank you. So yeah, Azad, you can take over. Let me make you host now.
Okay, thanks Sagar. So guys, welcome back again. So today we will probably again keep it short since it's almost 1 hour with Sagar, and also you will be busy with your festivals, people who are celebrating Diwali tomorrow. So I wish you all have advanced Diwali wishes. And to get started, we will be looking into some of the Palo Alto features. So, and also I plan to show a small lab on creating a user account and what different types of user accounts you could create and what options do you have over there. So probably if we break it down into 15 and 15 minutes, we should be able to wrap it up inside 30 minutes with the Q&A, right? So let me share my whiteboard to talk about the features of Palo Alto. Let me know once you are able to see my whiteboard so I could start. Can you all see my whiteboard?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So yesterday we were talking about what are the deployment modes, how to choose a product when it comes to Palo Alto, depending on whether it's a small office or a medium-sized office or a data center, and on what basis we categorized Palo Alto as the leader in the market, comparing FortiGate as an example. So even though both has same security features, the amount of security it provides, we considered cost, we considered the features, we also considered the support, and also the user interface, how the user interface has been presented to the administrator. So considering all of that, we gave Palo Alto a little edge over FortiGate, right? So today, as I said, we will be talking about again, this will be taken in deep details when we start the session next week. So I'll just talk about a couple of important features that Palo Alto would provide to us, and we'll look at a small lab on user admin creation. And yesterday I've also showed you how a GUI would look like and what are the options that we could probably see through a GUI, right? So maybe we will also see management IP config and taking access to Palo Alto. And all right, let's get started. So I'll just list down the features that we could think of, or I could think of when it comes to Palo Alto. So first thing, it's ability to manage multiple firewalls on a single infrastructure, single device. That is a panorama. Second thing would be application ID and wildfire. So everything will be probably gone through in a line or two for you to make you understand what actually the feature does and how it helps us to secure the network or help us secure the network, right? So each and every topic will be discussed in detail, as I said, but today we'll just understand what the term means and how it's useful for us while using Palo Alto, right? Content ID and probably we could say URL filtering, user ID, pretty much we'll try to discuss these points today. All right, so starting with panorama. So as I've already told you about panorama, where you have, let's say, let's consider this to be multiple offices, which is interconnected to the data center here through an IPsec tunnel, or you have a router that's facing the internet over here, and you connect them through DMVPN or directly from Palo Alto to Palo Alto. You have a Palo Alto device here on the data center, and you connect them to IPsec. So whatever might be the connection mechanism you have. So let's say you got to connect multiple firewalls in the offices to a data center and access the servers behind it. So this is going to be the ultimate way of deploying resources, right? So, or you will be deploying them over the cloud, either AWS, GCP, or whatever cloud it might be, Alibaba or whatever. So in this scenario, you will have certain, let's say you have a DHCP server here, right? You have a DHCP here, you have a DNS here, and you have some production server that's running behind this.
We are not able to see your presentation.
Okay, just give me one sec. I was told that you could see my whiteboard already clear. I was assuming it is visible, so sorry about that. Okay, can you see my whiteboard now? Maybe whatever I've written here, is it visible?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe you're not able to see what I'm drawing on that, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Maybe I'm using a different pen, maybe, yeah. Okay. So as I was talking about the scenario where we use multiple firewalls for multiple branch offices, which connects to a Palo Alto on the data center to connect to different servers behind the DC, right? So let's say we have all the office users trying to connect to the firewall on the data center, which in turn wants to access these servers, right? And let's also imagine the users coming from all the firewalls have a common zone called corporate zone or trust zone or whatever. And when they go out, they are going out through a zone called VPN zone to reach this data center. So will it not be easy enough to manage all these firewalls on a centralized device here, which has a template or whatever being configured, and all the common configurations for all these locations are pushed to these firewalls by creating just one single rule instead of creating 3 or 20 or 25, how much of firewalls you have here. Instead of creating 20 rules on 20 firewalls, you create one rule and push it to all 20 firewalls. So let's say you want to access from this location, from this zone towards this server. So you got to configure a rule on this firewall, and on this firewall, probably all 20 of it, if you have 20 locations, towards this same data center firewall to access the same server, right? So instead, you have a centralized device which is connected to all the office locations, to this and to this, and to the data center firewall. You get to configure one single rule that will push that rule towards all the firewalls that is required to access this server. So may it be anything for that matter. So any centralized service that the users wants to access, you got to configure the same set of rules here. So instead of configuring them on single firewalls individually, you go and configure it on the Panorama, which is centrally managed, which has all the firewalls connected. So there are some configuration that you're supposed to do for connecting these firewalls to this Panorama. Once they're connected, you configure something called device group, something called template, and you make sure all the configs that are centralized, that are globally necessary for it to be configured on all the firewalls, are just configured once here and pushed to the necessary firewalls, and you're good to go. So that's about Panorama in short. And application ID. So when you talk about application ID, let me clear this for you. Okay, so when we talk about app ID here, let's say we have a user sitting in here and we have a server on the outside and a firewall in the center. And let's imagine they are connected, right? So in this scenario where you have a user sitting in here who wants to try and access this application or a server that hosts an application, may be a public application. So you wanted to know whether he's actually accessing a legitimate application or if it's probably something that he's not supposed to access. So when you push it through a firewall, the firewall, what it does is it has something called app ID signatures. So through that signatures, to access those signatures, it contacts the Palo Alto public cloud and retrieves the data and application ID information to the Palo Alto firewall, provided that you have the license to it, and make sure you're reaching the application that the firewall trusts for you, right? So instead of using a port number, identifying a traffic using a port number such as 80 or 443 or whatever, you basically are accessing the application using its application name itself. So using this application ID signature, so imagine you're reaching somewhere to reach a protocol called HTTP. So it knows, the Palo Alto knows that HTTP will have a get message first, and then it will have a put message, pull message. So all those information that the HTTP application would contain will be analyzed by Palo Alto when you're trying to pass a HTTP application, and it will allow the application based on the application name instead of the port number. So you know the HTTP port number is 80, but you want to be really sure with what application exactly you're accessing. Let's say you're accessing a HTTPS application, but the application name is, let's say, Facebook. The Palo Alto will identify it to be Facebook. Let's say it's YouTube, it identifies it as YouTube. So how it does that? It has its Palo Alto cloud server available in the internet, where it pulls the information from towards the Palo Alto firewall, provided you have the license, and make sure that you identify the traffic based on the application, not based on the port number. In fact, you have that feature as well, where if you don't have a definite application that's defined, let's say it's a custom application that you have defined that is not yet available with Palo Alto, you could very well do a port number tracking and allow the traffic based on the port number, right? Wildfire, it's again a security feature where you send the traffic. Let's say you are trying to access a URL, or maybe you receive a message or a mail or an email from outside, and you try to access a link through that email, maybe a phishing link. The Palo Alto identifies that, and it sees with the wildfire signatures whether it has this pattern of traffic already available with it, which has already been reported by Palo Alto Cloud, that it is a threat application or a threat URL. If not, it sends the traffic to the wildfire public cloud, where it analyzes the traffic based on sandbox mechanism, where it has a sandbox PC there, test PC there. So it will try to send the traffic towards the server that the user is trying to access, the URL he is trying to access, and make sure what's the response. And with that, it identifies this URL to be a threatful URL or not. And then if it is threatful, it creates a signature for it and sends that information to the Palo Alto, and also make sure that that signature which is being presented to this Palo Alto firewall is presented to all the firewalls which has wildfire signature all over the world. With that, it avoids this pattern of attack which this PC just received is being avoided upon amongst all the firewalls that are available in the internet, right? Again, we'll go through wildfire in deep details on how many methods that the Palo Alto has in order to analyze the antivirus traffic. Content ID, I have shown you extensively yesterday on the security profiles, where we deal with things like file blocking, antivirus, anti-malware, anti-spyware, wildfire also as a part of security profiles, content ID. And you also have URL filtering, which I'll be talking to you next. So all these features combined is the content ID. So it's basically going to analyze the content that you are sending or receiving to analyze if it has any sort of threat amongst these threats that we are seeing. So in terms of file blocking, you can mention are you blocking a specific extension of a file, antivirus, anti-spyware, wildfire, URL filtering, right? So talking about URL filtering in specific, so you basically are going to categorize the URL based on the risk and the category of it. So whether it belongs to a media category or a drug category. So what type of URL you're accessing. So basically, if you access a YouTube, it's categorized as entertainment. So as YouTube is categorized as entertainment, you will have other URLs also categorized the same way. So you wanted to block any specific category of traffic, URL traffic, you can do that. Or if you want to filter the traffic based on the risky category, where risk 4 and risk 5 categories are less risky, so you could block risk 1 and 2. So something like that. So you can filter based upon the category and the risk value, right? User ID. So Palo Alto also provides you the feature of integrating the user's IP to username by the help of Active Directory or LDAP. LDAP is a protocol. Active Directory is the actual directory that we will probably be accessing in order to pull the data that the user's domain, data of the user's domain and the usernames. So may it be Microsoft AD. So from Microsoft AD, you will have all the users, user groups, and their domains defined in there. So you can just try to create a profile on Palo Alto for this AD and make sure the AD is connected. And you can pull all the data that you see here for the users, groups, and domains. And that data can be used on the security policy to filter the traffic based on the username instead of just the IP address. All right. So any questions so far before we move on to see some lab in action? So as I told you, it will just be an overview where the details of it will be discussed when we start up the class next week. So I just don't want you to load yourself too much with the theory. So I just thought of covering a few topics and show you a lab so that you get familiarized with the GUI before even you start the class. So if you don't have further questions, shall I move on to the lab? Anyone could comment or probably tell me by unmuting yourself. Okay, I'll take that as a yes. So before I started joining this, I just powered on the firewall so that I can kick in right away, or else it's going to take us 5 to 10 minutes to power on the firewall. So I'm not going to do any connectivity stuff here. I'm just going to say how do you or where do you navigate in the GUI, and how do you configure the CLI for your management interface. And also we'll see a short lab on administrator. So to get started, I'll navigate towards the GUI under device. So first thing you do when you get your Palo Alto network box is to make sure you console the firewall and you configure the management interface and take the console of the device, right? So here you have the PC, and by default, the firewall comes with the management IP of 192.168.1.1, and probably one way of doing it is you configure 1.2 on the other side of the PC, and by default on the management interface, you should be able to access HTTPS and SSH of the device, and you should be able to ping the device as well if it is in the same network. So if you don't want it to be in the default IP address, you could go ahead and change the IP. That's what we're going to see now. And the default password would be admin and admin for the new box. So under device setup, so before even you get to CLI, sorry, you get to GUI, you got to make sure you console the laptop with the firewall. So you connect your console port to the firewall and the other side to be on the laptop. And you got to take console of the device and enter in the password.
So
right?
console should be connected on management port, right?
Console port is different, management port is different. So first thing you do is you wanted to make sure that you are getting the CLI access to the firewall. Then you configure the management interface.
Okay.
Right? Or you connect the management port of the firewall to a PC and directly start configuring the firewall from the PC itself. So here in our case, probably in our production environment, you might have a firewall with no config. You can directly console it through the console port.
So there is no default IP on the device.
Default IP should be there. It's, as I said, it's 192.168.1.1 with /24 subnet mask. So right now I have connected this to a DHCP server. My local server is acting as DHCP, as you could see. So this is the network. So it's got an IP.
In which interface, in which port this IP is configured, default IP?
It should be on management port. So I'll show you that. So you have logged into the firewall. Yes.
So if the IP is configured on management port, so we can directly connect the laptop on management port, and we can take the GUI login through.
Yes, that is possible, and that is possible. You have another option, as I said, you can connect your console cable to your laptop's port, and then take the console, configure your management IP if you want your management IP to be different. Let's say in your production network, always you stage your new firewall on a specific lab network, and that network, let's say, is in 10.32.24.0/24.
Okay.
So you got to make sure you configure that on that specific IP address, and after configuring the management IP, you connect it to a switch, and directly you might have configured the connectivity to Panorama so that you do necessary configuration. So you are connected to the Panorama directly. So you basically are trying to, at the end of the day, trying to connect your firewall to the network, to your production network. So it's always easier when you do the config with respect to your production environment, instead of doing a isolated config and then going and connecting it to your network directly. And if it doesn't work, then you got to go and troubleshoot again. So to avoid all that, you could just configure a management IP, connect it to your usual management network, and start configuring from there. So when you are in a Panorama environment, the first thing you should do is, as I said, you have few configs. If you're on a Panorama environment, you have a common configs that you should push to the firewall. Let's say from your firewall towards the data center, the configs are on the firewall will directly be pushed from Panorama, not from the local device. So all our common configs, let's say this firewall, and this firewall are all going to connect to a server behind the data center, and everything should have a common config that shall be pushed from Panorama. You don't have to do it manually on the firewall. So in that case, isolating the firewall and connecting it to a PC is not a good idea. Okay, so I was showing you the CLI terminal, where if you wanted to see what's the interface about, let me pull this up. So if you provide show interface management, you get to see what's the management interface, its subnet mask, and this gateway, and other informations like counters and everything for the interface. So if you got to configure that, you got to go to configuration mode, that is configure. And once you are in, from the greater than symbol of greater than prompt, you should be getting a hash prompt. That is going to mean that you are in the configuration mode. And the command to configure your management interface is going to be set device config, system, IP address, and your IP. Let's say we configure 10.32.32.20, net mask 255.255.255.0, default gateway 10.32.32.100. Pretty much that should be your config. Maybe if you want to connect this to a Panorama server, you can add a command for Panorama server. So the config on your firewall will be configuring your Panorama server's IP address, right? And you got to configure your IP address of the Panorama. So I'm not going to do this because it's going to break my network that I'm going to labbing you for this session. So once you do this, you got to make sure you commit the config. So right now I've canceled the changes.
Is
so there are no
Panorama is a physical entity or just is a virtual profile?
It can be both. So it can be both. You can. It's better to have a VM series Panorama, but yeah, it can be both. Okay. So on the GUI, it's again under device setup interfaces. You have management interface, the same thing you configured over there. So right now it's DHCP client. When you go for static, you see all these configs that you did there. So this is what I said. By default, you have HTTP, SSH, and ping by default enabled on the firewall. That's the reason if you configure 192.168.1.2 on the other side with the subnet mask of 24 on the PC connected to the firewall with its default configs, you will be able to access it because these are enabled by default for you. So for this interface, you can reach this interface through these services, provided you have routing enabled for reaching this IP address, right? So I'm canceling this since I'm on DHCP. Okay, we'll see the last part of today, which will be creating an administrator. So you have the username called admin, which I have logged in currently, which you could see here, right? So I'm on CLI as well as web interface, right? So when you go to device administrator, when you try to add a new user, so you give a username called security-admin. Authentication profile. If you're not using username and password, you could use an authentication profile where you could define whether you are pulling your authentication details from the AD and what are those details. So what is the AD about? Is it the local database or a radius or LDAP or TechAx? If you're doing a SAML authentication, that's again another type of authentication that you do. So this is for Most probably when you are working with your production network, you have your if you're using any Connect VPN or any VPN application, third party or any vendor specific, you will have MFA, right? So you first authenticate with your AD username and password, and then you use Ping ID or Google Authenticator to generate an OTP on your phone number or an email, and enter that OTP and then authenticate again. So that is something you call it as SAML for multi-factor authentication. Kerberos is again another authentication method that you could use. So if you're not using any of this, just using username and password on the local database, you could very well use this. I'm just giving it as admin and admin. And administrator type. So if it's dynamic, you have 4 options. Super user, he can do anything and everything. So he can change the configuration. He can read everything that is on the firewall. He will have all the read access, all the write access, including he could change the administration tab that I'm seeing here, that you are seeing here. This guy, it can just do a read-only mechanism of what all super user could do. Device administrator, so he will have all access to change all the configs except for doing changes on the administrator tab or authentication profile tab. This guy, same as device administrator, only difference being he could see only his username under administrator tab. He could not see anything more than that. Apart from that, he will have read access to everything. You say role based, you have to define a profile, right? Under that profile, you mention what tabs he should have access to and what tabs he shouldn't have access to, and whether he should have read only or he should have write access to for the tab. So everything can be mentioned over there in the profile, and then you can bring in the profile here and then sync it up with your user here. So let me create security admin with a username and password of admin, and I'll give him a super user. So let's test one of them. So I said device administrator cannot change anything on administrator tab. So let's say device administrator, password profile, I'm not giving anything. So password profile is just how many length of password maximum, minimum he should provide. And if it is anything of character specific, the general profile that we see whenever we authenticate using password, right? So let me click on OK. Okay, so this password profile here, under setup tab, if you go ahead and see for password profile, it should say minimum of 8 characters. So I'm giving it less than that, so it's not allowing me to. So I'll give admin at 1, 2, 3. And I'll also show you before that I commit the config. So here you have 2 options where you commit all the changes, which is always not recommended because you have multiple administrators working on this firewall. And if you commit all changes, you are committing all his changes as well, which is not committed yet. So instead, you commit only your changes, which is admin. That's always recommended. And also to provide a description whenever you do some changes. That will also help you to review when you have done some changes and you got to revert them, or you got to see through what changes are being made. Okay, so this is the activity tab. So you could see this activity tab this way, or if you have closed it, you could go to task and then you could see that here that the commit is happening and commit description is this, and it's made by user admin, right? So in this case, if you are not giving any description, you might not know what have you done here, right? So once this is committed, I'll also show you where the password profile is located. So under setup, device setup management, you scroll down. You have password complexity, and we have minimum length is 8. So this is why we have not been allowed to configure that password of admin. So let us log out from here and try to log in with the security admin user to see if we are able to edit anything in administrator tab. So we are logged in. So it's always every time when you log into the firewall, it shows you something as a pop-up. That's the update that the Palo Alto provides if in case it is having any new versions to update you. So all those informations will be provided there, which you can consider or you might not. So you see, you are in administrator tab, and as I told you, under device administrator profile, you only see the user that you are logged into. You don't see the admin user or any other user here. Or rather, you will not be able to make any changes here. As you could see, you could only retrieve the information in the form of PDF that you see over here. So that's about this. So let us log out and try to see the role-based profile. So I log into the admin user, which is the super user for me. So we are in, and I'm again going back to before creating the administrator user, I'll try to do admin role. These are the default roles available. I'll add a new one. So where I can give it a name called restricted, and whatever you see as green here is all allowed to access. Okay. And if you want a read only, you could make that a read only. And if you want to disable access completely, you can do that too. So let's say I want him only for monitoring stuff. So I make it a yes for all the monitoring tabs. Okay. ACC as well, packet capture, everything, PDF reports, all those monitoring stuff, I allow him to do so. So policies, I completely deny. Objects, I allow him to view. So if I click on this 2 times, maybe I should disable this. So I don't want him to access any of it except the monitoring tab. So tasks he may view. So apart from that, I'm just denying him access for everything, right? So even for command line, you can give him whatever user role you want to, right? So I'm giving OK, and I'm going to the administrator, and I'm choosing the same security admin, and I'm giving him a password profile. I'm choosing him as role-based now, and I'm giving him a password profile of restricted. Okay. Sorry, the role as restricted and password profile as none as usual. So I click on OK and commit. So once this is done, we're going to log out and verify if he's seeing policies tab, objects tab, or network tab, or whatever it is, or he's only seeing what we have allowed him to, right? This is done. I hope so. Yeah, it's done now. So let me log out and log in with security-admin. Once I log in, I should not see anything except the 2 tabs I've allowed him to use. So exactly, rightly so. I'm seeing only dashboard, ACC, and monitor. So with this, he will not be able to make any changes. So he will not be able to see anything other than this. So I've also allowed him to see what tasks are being performed, like who is committing the changes and so on and so forth. So when you again log back in with admin username, you should be again able to see everything coming up. So that's about today, guys. So extensively on whatever topics I went through in a brief today will be discussed in the upcoming sessions next week. So you can stay tuned, and whoever has not enrolled, as Saga told you, you can use the information provided in the chat to contact the backend team and enroll yourself as soon as possible. So you have any further questions on what we have discussed so far? If not, we'll call it a day, and probably we'll see you next week then. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the time, and I hope to see you all next week for the extended session. Looking forward. Thank you.